Welcome to the Bookworm Duo, where we explore a variety of books. Let's get started. Okay, so today we're doing a deep dive into a really powerful piece of source material, Black AF history.
Yeah, it takes a very specific angle. The author lays out this chronological exploration, but it's framed differently.
Right, it's not just facts and dates. The whole idea is framing American history as this, well, this ongoing strong-arm robbery.
Exactly. And about the continuous fight to recover what was stolen. It sets that tone right from the beginning, actually, with the author's own childhood.
That part about the fear after Reagan's election, you mean? The feeling of potentially being sent back to the cotton fields.
That deep inherited fear. And it connects directly to their early education in that middle room their family had.
A room built, what was it, only 22 miles from a former forced labor camp? That proximity is chilling.
And it informs that core belief from the author's mother, which kind of echoes throughout the book.
The one about how a black child cannot fully realize their humanity in the presence of whiteness.
Yeah, that idea shapes the entire interpretation of history presented here. It's the foundation.
So that leads directly to the book's main argument, then. That U.S. history isn't some story of progress or discovery, but fundamentally.
A robbery, a heist. That's the central thesis we're going to unpack today, following the author's timeline.
So where do we start? Not 1619, according to the source.
Definitely not. The book pushes back hard on that, pointing to a much earlier African presence, like Juan Garrido.
Handsome John, right? Landing with Ponce de Leon way back in 1503, part of the conquest of Puerto Rico.
Think about that, 1503. And then there's Esteban, the African man who spoke Arabic. His story is incredible.
He basically saved his Spanish companions, guiding them thousands of miles across the Southwest. Interpreter, healer.
Did everything. And his reward when they finally got to Mexico City around 1550.
Re-enslaved. Just like that.
The author uses these stories, I think, to show capability and resilience right from the jump, which makes the contrast with Jamestown even starker.
Ah, yes. Jamestown, 1607. Chartered by King James I, purely for, quote, cash money.
But the people they sent were, well, let's just say not cut out for it. The sources describe them as adventurers, totally incompetent.
Cicero apparently called that type unsuited for manual labor. Seems about right.
Absolutely. They thought they'd find gold, right? Found pyrite instead. Fool's gold.
And they couldn't even feed themselves. They had to rely completely on the Powhatan nation just to survive that first winter.
Which naturally didn't last. When the Powhatan cut them off, things got really bad. The starving time.
It's brutal to read about. The sources are clear: cannibalism, eating belts, pets.
And each other, even pregnant women. It's a horrifying picture of the colony's beginnings. Just sheer failure.
And that's why 1619 becomes so significant in this narrative.
Yeah.
Not as the start, but as the moment the failure gets turned around.
Precisely. By stolen black labor and know-how, John Rolfe shows up with tobacco seeds, but the colony only really takes off.
After the arrival of those 20 and odd Negroes, taken from the Spanish ship, the San Juan Bautista.
Sold by pirates, basically. The White Lion and the Treasurer. Stolen people saved the colony, made the land valuable.
And almost immediately, they moved to lock that system in place with laws. Which brings us to the next phase, right? Codifying slavery.
Yeah, shifting into the mid-1600s. 1662 is the key date in Virginia.
That's the law that changed everything, making children bond or free only according to the condition of the mother.
It legally cemented intergenerational slavery for Africans, completely different from white indentured servants whose children were born free. It sealed their fate.
And wait, there was that direct economic piece too, the Black Headright scheme.
Oh, absolutely. That's crucial. The government literally gave away free land, 50 acres, for every African person imported.
So the state itself was incentivizing kidnapping and trafficking, trading land for stolen people.
Puts a clear price tag on it. Meanwhile, down in South Carolina, you see a similar dynamic playing out with rice.
Right, the planters, like the Draytons, they just couldn't figure out how to grow cash crops successfully.
Until they saw enslaved Africans doing it. They realized they needed specific knowledge, skills the planters just didn't have.
So what did they do?
They targeted the West African rice coast specifically, went there to steal people who possessed that advanced horticultural know-how.
So it wasn't just stealing labor, it was stealing expertise, specialized knowledge.
And the market even reflected that. The source notes that enslavers figured out African women were especially skilled in rice cultivation and processing.
To the point where, by the early 1700s, women were being priced the same as men in the slave markets there.
Yeah, it's a grim detail, but that concentration of people from the same region, often isolated, is also how the Gullah Geechee culture could develop.
Kind of a hybrid culture born out of that
It's
isolation.
exactly, almost in a white man-free vacuum, as the source puts it, using African languages, knowledge systems. It was cultural survival, a form of resistance itself.
And speaking of resistance, the book really emphasizes active, organized resistance, not just endurance, like Queen Nzinga.
A powerhouse. Angolan ruler, called herself king, led troops in battle against the Portuguese for 30 years.
And offered freedom, right? Anyone enslaved by Europeans who made it to her kingdom was free.
She set a precedent. And you see that warrior spirit echoed later in people stolen from that region, like with the Stono Rebellion in 1739.
Led by Jemmy, an Angolan warrior. He used his knowledge, his languages.
Planned it strategically, timed it for Sunday church, knew about a delay in a gun law. Very calculated.
And they weren't just rioting. They had a goal. Fort Mose in Spanish Florida. A free black settlement.
Showing real strategic thinking, aiming for liberation.
And this leads up to the biggest revolt, the 1811 Multicultural Rebellion in Louisiana.
Along the German coast, yeah. Directly inspired by Haiti, led by Ashanti warriors Cook and Comana and Charles Deslonde.
It flows right into the period of revolutions, starting with the American one in 1776.
And the source is very clear here. For enslaved Africans, joining either side wasn't about patriotism. It was about survival, resistance.
They didn't really have a dog in that fight, which was essentially white folks arguing over taxes.
Exactly, which is why what Lord Dunmore did was so effective and so terrifying to the colonists.
Offering freedom to any enslaved person who joined his Ethiopian regiment.
And putting liberty to slaves right there on the uniforms? The author says it scared the bejesus out of the wig-wearing colonists.
Because it turned their own source of labor against them.
Now compare that to the Haitian Revolution, 1791 to 1804. Toussaint Louverture leads the only successful slave revolt that resulted in an independent nation, kicked France out of the New World game.
But then comes that absolutely staggering moment the jailer highlights, the cost of that freedom.
Yeah, this is the aha moment about the ongoing theft. France didn't just walk away, they demanded Haiti pay.
Not France, but the former slave owners. For the value of the people who had freed themselves.
150 million francs. It's almost unbelievable. The freed people had to pay their captors for the financial loss of their own freedom.
And the U.S. backed this debt, pushed Haiti into this cycle of poverty that lasts, essentially to this day.
It took Haiti 122 years to pay it off, according to the source, a freedom tax.
And where did the final payments go? Citibank. An American bank built partly on slave trafficking profits, paying off a debt for freed slaves, the system feeding itself.
It really underscores the economic devastation aspect of the theft. Even during the U.S. Civil War, the source focuses on self-emancipation.
Like Robert Smalls,
Yeah.
an enslaved man just stealing a Confederate ship, the CSS Planter, in 1862 and sailing it to the Union. Incredible.
And Harriet Tubman, not just the Underground Railroad, but leading the Combahee Ferry Raid in 1863.
First woman, black or white, to lead a U.S. military operation. Freed over 700 people. Showed black women's military value.
And you also had espionage, like Mary Lou Vester.
The seamstress, right? Overheard plans for the Confederate ironclad, sketched them, got them to the Union. Critical intelligence.
So the war ends, the 13th Amendment makes slavery illegal. And for a very brief moment during Reconstruction, things look hopeful.
A glimmer. Special Field Orders number 15. The 40 acres and a mule idea. 400,000 acres promised.
Plus the 14th and 15th Amendments defining citizenship and voting rights. But that glimmer faded fast.
Almost immediately reversed by the backlash. The black codes spring up all over the South.
And they were blatant attempts to reinstate slavery in practice, if not in name. Like in South Carolina, making black farm workers work sunrise to sunset.
And requiring them to call supervisors master. Just wow. Trying to turn back the clock instantly.
Then the Supreme Court weighs in with Plessy v. Ferguson in 1896. This wasn't an accident, it was a test case.
The Citizens Committee set it up to challenge segregation. And the court gave us separate but equal.
But look at the language the source highlights from the ruling. The court said inequality basically only exists because
the colored race chooses to put that construction upon it, blaming the victim for perceiving the inequality.
It's a masterclass in legal gaslighting, essentially codifying the theft of equal rights. And while the law did that, other groups worked on the narrative.
Like the United Daughters of the Confederacy, the UDC.
Yeah, actively rewriting history textbooks, pushing the states' rights myth, turning Confederate leaders into heroes.
And Stone Mountain becomes the symbol of that. funded partly by the UDC, opened on the anniversary of Lincoln's assassination.
And the land itself, where the carving is, granted perpetual rights to the KKK in 1915. It's not subtle.
Moving into the 20th century, the source really credits women with laying the groundwork for the civil rights movement.
Absolutely. Figures like Ida B. Wells, who wasn't afraid to call out anyone Booker T. Washington. White suffragists like Frances Willard on lynching, on hypocrisy.
She refused to compromise on the truth. And Mary McLeod Bethune, showing serious political skill.
Getting funding for the Tuskegee Airmen by slipping that benign provision into a military bill. That's some strategic maneuvering.
Needed for pilot training programs at black colleges. Just slipped it in. Amazing.
But that progress was met with intense, organized opposition from the government itself. J. Edgar Hoover and COINTELPRO.
This stuff sounds like fiction, but the source confirms it was chillingly real. Hoover targeting MLK after the I Have a Dream speech.
Calling him the most dangerous Negro of the future. And COINTELPRO's goals were written down. Stop coalitions, stop a messiah from rising, prevent leaders from gaining respectability.
It was sabotage, illegal surveillance, and disruption. And it had deadly consequences.
Leading directly to things like the assassination of Fred Hampton in 1969, facilitated by an FBI informant, William O'Neill.
The police fired, over 90 bullets. The Panthers fired one shot. It was an execution.
So the book ties this all together, arguing that this strong-arm robbery never actually stopped. It just changed forms after slavery was legally abolished.
Arguing that since 1868, it's been ongoing illegal theft.
And you see it in resource theft, like the Briggs v. Elliott case in Somerton, South Carolina.
One of the cases rolled into Brown v. Board.
Yep.
It showed black taxpayers funding nice white schools, buses.
While their own kids walked miles to dilapidated schools, sometimes drowning crossing rivers because there were no bridges or buses for them. It's resource allocation as theft.
And maybe the biggest economic engine of theft in the 20th century, according to the source, the GI Bill.
Huge opportunity generator, government-backed home loans, paid tuition for veterans after WWII, built the white middle class.
Unless, as the source bluntly states, you are black.
Denied those loans at the local level, shut out of the new suburbs, denied that pathway to generational wealth. The disparity we see today isn't accidental.
It's the result of decades of these systemic, calculated choices, rigging the game.
Which brings us back to the author's personal story at the end, that final anecdote.
Running away from Aunt Janny's house in New Jersey, a place that sounds pretty nice, safe, comfortable, even luxurious.
Yeah, running from free trips to the Big Apple and unlimited books seems counterintuitive, but why?
Because Aunt Janny barely let them go outside. It was a gilded cage, in a way.
So they ran away just to sit on a curb, eat popsicles, and feel free. Truly free.
It makes you think. What kind of freedom were they seeking? The last line hits hard. I ran away from all that freedom because I wanted to go outside.
It leaves you, the listener, pondering what real freedom means. Is it safety granted by others, or is it autonomy? And what does it mean to truly recover everything that was stolen, not just wealth, but dignity, agency, the ability to just go outside?
A really provocative way to end the account, prompting reflection on what liberation truly entails. Thanks for joining us. Subscribe for more bookish adventures and hit that like button if you enjoyed the ride. Don't forget to share the knowledge, spread the word.